Well, hello, Coach Robbie.
Whoa! Good morning, Michael. Happy Monday.
Same to you. Fancy meeting you here.
I know, right? Fancy meeting you here on a Monday as we inch closer to our 200th episode of the beloved Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast.
Welcome to episode 199, everyone.
Oh, 199. And if we're doing triathlon speak, so we'll say it's basically 200.
Round it up.
Always rounding it up. But yeah, it is great to be here. And it's funny you opened up the show like that. I was kind of looking through a couple things and other podcasts and stuff, and there's definitely a lot of good ones out there. But I gotta say, I think while our content may sometimes be non-triathlon, with a nice dose of life and regular athlete information or stories or stuff like that, 200 uninterrupted on holidays, the consistency. If I can bring this amount of consistency to every other aspect of my life, I'm going to be a champion.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with our commitment to doing this, and I know it's everything sounds fun to start. I know we both thought, let's start a podcast, it'll be fun, and then it's like it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time, but we've done it, so I'm happy with that, and happy. It's just crazy to kind of look back and see all the things that have transpired since then, and all the awesome people that we've met, and the crazy emails that we've gotten that are awesome. So many people's stories, and it's really, really, really cool.
It is cool. I'm working on a book called Podcasting to Learn.
Oh, are you now?
I'm not.
Okay, that's what I didn't think you were, but you never.
I don't have the tenacity or the consistency to finish that book.
Yeah, that's gonna be a booger.
Yeah, the whole that just sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, it does. No thanks. I'm a hard pass on that. But this is good because it's fluid and we can talk about whatever we want to, or whatever other people want us to talk about. So happy to be there. And we had a great weekend. We had a bunch of athletes come in town to Nashville this last weekend and join us for a little double ride action, a little Saturday, Sunday ride on the very great place to ride that is the Natchez Trace Parkway. And Saturday was just brutally hot and took no prisoners. And then yesterday was definitely a little bit cooler. I kind of wish we had flip-flopped the effort days, because yesterday was so much more of a nice day. But it was great. It was great to see all the athletes that we had, and they're all gearing up for something. And Ironman Chattanooga or Ironman Louisville. And so it's good to see. It's good to see them all inching closer to their big day, and also laying the smack down on Coach for the last 20 miles. I was hanging on for dear life until I finally couldn't hang on anymore, and the rubber band popped, and I did the ride of shame home.
You cruised in with me, basically.
I'm talking. Saturday, I cruised in just a beaten and battered Coach, which is good. As much as I suffered, it was awesome to see the other athletes that dropped me like I was like a sack of potatoes, just how good a shape they're in. So that makes me happy.
Yeah, that was cool. But I have to say, I was kind of thinking about, I just did my one of my YouTube Road to Louisville live things, and what really stuck out with me on Saturday was that I was just not feeling it again. Like we went out and had a 5 to 6 hour day scheduled, and from the get-go I just didn't have it and wasn't feeling it. And honestly, dude, I was in some dark places out there. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to, we can talk about whatever we want, but like the one thing I was thinking about was I think we all go through those. I mean, when I say dark places, I mean like and maybe the run or the bike is kind of where they happen the most, especially when you're 40 miles, 30, 40 miles out from where you have to go, and
Yeah.
you're not feeling it. And I kept just trying everything to find something, and it wasn't. I feel like I had a pretty good effort that day, but it was like every time I felt something going right, and then I wanted to push it a little bit more. I just didn't have it, and like it was very deflating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about dark. Like I wanted to quit. I hated cycling at that moment, and I think we
Yeah.
all kind of go through that. But the lesson for me though was, I made it through, and it wasn't a day that at the time I was very proud of, but when I got, I did a little run off the bike, and when I got home that day, you could not, I, you cannot even, weigh the amount of that I didn't want to ride the next day. It
Yeah.
was just overwhelming, and I just kind of kicked back, started eating, I laid down and watched my Badgers lose to BYU, first of
Mm.
all. So it was just a doubly
It's a
dark day.
solid day.
Yeah, it was like a character building kind of day for me, and kind of got over that, and then just did my thing and didn't do much, and just ate and kind of went. And I fell asleep at about 9:30, and we were riding the next day at 6, and I woke up at 6:10, 40
Yep.
minutes away from the start.
Yes,
Which
I enjoyed your text message. Hey, I'm obviously not there. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I wasn't there. But the moral of this whole story was that sleep that I had. I mean, it was uninterrupted sleep, which is kind of rare for me, and that's about 9 hours of solid rack time. And I just felt like a different person that day, Sunday. And by the time I got out there, I just really, and we came back, and you guys were ahead of me, and so you guys were done, and I actually went out and did another like 30 miles or 35 miles or whatever that was,
Yep.
and was loving it. So, the lesson there is that one day does not what is that saying? One day does not a training session make, or whatever.
Yeah. That's why the sport's so great. I mean, I didn't feel spectacular Saturday, but uh, I knew that I was up for a decently good challenge and felt pretty good. And then yesterday I felt like just absolute horse crap because I got worked over. Um, but it's funny you say that because I had another athlete who texted me on Saturday and had like probably the best total day with like a really long ride and just like an insanely fast run, probably of like the whole year. On cloud nine, awesome, everything is great. The next day, worst run ever. And so I was just like, hey, isn't that funny how like in 24 hours everything changes, but it always does. I mean, that's just like that's the nature of training. But that's also like why I really enjoy the sport so much is because everything is always changing, and one day doesn't make or break a training cycle.
Yeah, it's amazing, really, don't you think?
Uh, I mean, I would say it's definitely amazing. I mean, it's just the fact that you can, and you can't predict it. You can't predict if you're going to be on it, and because we've all had these workouts where we wake up and we feel incredible, and we think we're going to crush the workout, and it goes awful, and then we've woke up feeling like garbage, and we're like, I don't know how I'm going to make it through this session, and then after like 20 minutes, you're like, I had no idea how I pulled that off. And so again, it's just like I can't reiterate enough how important it is to not have expectations when you go into a training session,
Mm-hmm.
especially like until the first 20 minutes are over, and then go from there. And then just see how it goes. But everybody always has, these expectations, even when it's like 95-degree heat and you're going to suffer. Like, stop expecting it to be great. Just stop. Like, but people do it all the time. I have athletes that do it every single week. I just don't know why I felt so bad. Yeah, it was 98 degrees with humid. Oh, then you expected to have a great run?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's like, let's just we just fail to take into account so many variables, and it's such a microcosm of the symptom of expectation and goal setting a lot of times that is the basic triathlete.
Mhm.
And the training day is one thing. They have this expectation they're going to dominate it, but they fail to take into account and be objective that it's almost 100 degrees, the humidity's crazy, they're super fatigued, they got crappy sleep, and they hydrated and fueled terribly. However, I'm going to crush this. And you can just basically multiply that times 364 when an athlete signs up for a race almost a year in advance. And they're like, yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to go sub 10. And you're like, oh, okay, well, let's step back for a minute. And while that may be very well possible, you may even go, sub 930, let's talk through what's going to be required of you to be able to achieve this. And then you're going to have to have the perfect year. No injuries, no big sickness, like no flu or anything like that. No work drama, no life drama. Perfect year, perfect case scenario. But then life happens as it does every day. And you have job situations that are different, relationships that change, injuries that happen, struggles with motivation, and like yet they get a month out to the race and they're like still holding on to that. Yeah, but like it's just my whole year is going to be a failure because really wanted to go sub 10
Mhm.
or whatever, and they just hold on to it to dear life for no reason, with no basis behind why. And you have to be. And listen, there's nothing wrong with being objective. Like it's actually the sign of a really, really smart and intelligent athlete when they can show objectivity. Like I love reading like, yeah, I knew I wasn't gonna have a good run today, or I'm not surprised this wasn't good because of blank. Because they show awareness and mindfulness that's really important for longevity as an athlete. But it's not you're not making excuses. You're not becoming a quitter. You're not, you know, um, sabotaging your race goal by adjusting what you actually honestly think is reasonable. And there's nothing wrong with that because I guarantee you it's going to make your whole race experience that much better. To be objective and be reasonable with this has happened and this has happened and this has happened and this has happened. So I'm going to do the very best that I can. And while it may not be what I really wanted it to be this year, given all the things that have gone through and gone on in my life, I'm really happy that A, I made it this far, and B, I was still able to accomplish something that so many people want to accomplish, and I gave it my best effort, and that's the best I can do.
Mhm.
Now, that's how you should look at it. But
Yeah.
people, always get caught in the what ifs and the I didn't, or what could have been.
Yeah, I was talking to Nate. That just reminded me. Nate was out riding yesterday, and he did a run off the bike yesterday. And we were kind of talking about that second half of the Ironman run again a little bit, and he totally agreed with me. I said, "Hey, you ran off the bike? How'd that go?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I think I was at 7:30." I was like, "I, I said it's just me, but I don't know if I would do that because really when you're thinking about um, that first 4 or 5 miles, you really want to think about how you're going to run it. I mean, that's kind of how I look at bricks, because
Hmm.
realistically, you're not going to be able to hold that for one, and B, that how you really are doesn't really start happening or doesn't start showing up till mile 9 or 10 or whatever like that. You know what I mean? So like you can feel like you can run 7:30s or whatever, but when you start hitting that, and he totally agreed. It was like you got to set yourself up for that, and that's that objectivity I think that we get kind of confused about is that when we're doing these workouts, like my workout was really bad on Saturday, but I think upon reflection I was really happy that I just stuck it out and I actually made it happen because that is a more realistic, objective sort of um, experience when you're thinking about a race like Ironman. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I think we get confused by workouts and thinking that they're actually, kind of like we have that mentality like this, it's always a race. And we want to feel excellent and feel like we just nailed everything like that. But there is so much value in workouts like I went through on Saturday. Those struggles and the idea that you're experiencing the challenges and pain that will surface in a race, and you're getting stronger because you fought through something when you didn't have it. And those are the kind of things that I like to, that's why I like what you're talking about, this objectivity, because realistically you have to just understand that this is a process, and every day, there's always opportunity in failure or
Mm-hmm.
bad experiences, and just to keep that mindset and look at something like, okay, what did I do well that day? Well, I finished.
Yeah.
I did I did a terrible 4.5 hours and maybe felt good for like 10 minutes, but
Right.
I made it through. So now I have that in my bag of tricks. It's like,
Well, it's like the same way, like you said, like the same. And I think I had this conversation again like a couple weeks ago. It's like you, if you're an athlete and you have like a hard, you have a hard bike session, to do, and you wake up and you just don't have it, then you don't have to just get off the bike and quit.
mm-hmm,
Finish it out. Zone one, zone two, because at least you're still accomplishing something. You're finishing. You might not have it, which is totally reasonable. Some days you're just not going to have it. So either A, just give it your best effort on the intervals and go lower than what you think that you had planned, or B, just cruise it out zone two and get something out of it.
mm-hmm.
But just quitting it and throwing it all away when you could at least get something out of it is really just a missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about it, and I'm not blind to the thought that maybe I went out there Sunday knowing that we are doing a, quote unquote easy ride,
Mm-hmm.
and that mentality that, like if you're going into a big 5-hour day with intervals and things like that, you can mentally psych yourself out if you're not feeling it. Like you're not
Oh
feeling
yeah.
good, and then all of a sudden you've got that load on you, and it's almost like you can reverse the whole mentality, say like, look, I'm not feeling intervals right now, so I'm just going to go out and with the idea in mind that I'm going to ride this, like you're saying, it's just going to be a ride today. And then
Mm-hmm.
hour and a half, 2 hours in, you might all of a sudden flip a switch and be like, all right, I can go after this now. And then you can end
Yep.
the ride solid that way too. There's no rules here. I mean, there's guidelines, and you always say it. Training plans are malleable, and you have to adjust, and it's like you don't get any medal for while the plan is solid and it's going towards the right goal and everything. You don't get medals for just nailing every second of that thing throughout the season. You want to ultimately feel good and be strong and be optimistic. I mean, because you have to leave. The key to me always is leaving that workout or coming into the next day with that hint of excitement, or that
Mm-hmm.
little bit of like, I want to go do this. I have it, because if
Yep.
you can do that, you win, man.
Yeah, it's like, listen, like, and that's the biggest. You have to be flexible, but that's also a reason why like so many athletes will struggle, or like July, August, sometimes even early September. I get emails from athletes who are getting really, really close to like a big race in October, November. And they're like, I've been doing the self-coach thing, and I've had a training plan, but I've had this, 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 and this, and this, and this happen. And they don't know how to adjust or be flexible with it, or move things around. And so like I've given this analogy before to some people, and they're like, so what's the biggest difference in like a training plan for the year or like actually getting coached? I'm like, all right, picture this. Giving someone a training plan is like going to IKEA, getting a TV entertainment center, and getting home and having the instructions. Chances are it's going to take you a while to put together. You're probably not going to like it, and chances are also pretty solid that you're going to be missing a piece. So you're going to be kind of
extras.
yeah, exactly. You have like 14 extras, so you're really not sure exactly what to do. But you can probably get it done, and it'll probably suffice and be okay. Versus if you choose something like the customized coaching route, it's basically going to whatever store you want to go to, picking out the thing you want to, You don't have to build, you don't have to worry about the instructions. You're going to have like a professional carpenter or whoever at your house with you, and they're going to walk you step by step through exactly what to do, and all you have to do is do piece by piece and listen to them. And if a piece is missing or this isn't, they're going to fix it, and you just go back into the mode of just listening to what they have to say. And the relief and the amount of energy that is saved for a lot of people by having that disconnect between brain and body is enormous, because they don't have to think anymore.
I can't tell you the stress that just took off me thinking about that. You know what I mean? It's like,
It's true. Like, just think about having that like as like at your disposal, and to have someone to troubleshoot and do all those things for you. Like, hey, I missed a day, I missed a session. Here's why. Like, I had an athlete who was traveling this weekend. He's doing Ironman Louisville. He had a great ride and a run on Saturday, missed some things on Saturday, and he was or on Sunday rather, and he was like, hey, just letting you know this, this, and this, and said, and so I just looked at what happened, then saw, of course, his first instinct was like, oh, I'm just going to make it all up on Monday.
right, yeah.
That's the typical triathlete, makeup syndrome. And I just shot him a text. I was like, hey, I made some adjustments to your week. Enjoy. And obviously I undid what he did because it was a horrible idea. But love you, Dave. But I had to move things around because it was just not smart. But and then you're done, and you don't have to worry about like the whole rest of the week thinking, I wonder if I did this right. I wonder if I did this right. It's just that's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's really like there's already enough moving parts in triathlon in general, with 3 sports: nutrition, transitions, race, logistics, everything you can possibly imagine, strength training, and then I want to decipher through what every other person says I should be doing. But it's just that you have to be flexible and fluid. And
Yeah.
the athletes that I work with that are the most, that perform usually the best or perform as close to their abilities and their goals they want to, are the ones that are incredibly consistent, but also incredibly flexible and forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
That easily flexible and forgiving are the most important attributes I believe any athlete can have. Be flexible with your training and be forgiving when things don't go the way that they can. Because they don't marry themselves to a specific, I didn't get this in, so I've got to make up all 3 of my runs on Saturday and then I'll be back on schedule. Like, listen, the more times you have to add on or make up and make up and make up and make up, something's probably not right from the get-go. So let's work, instead of like working on making things up going forward, let's try on making things right going forward. So it is, but if you're listening, and even if if you're self-coached or you have a coach, and if you have a coach, then this isn't an issue. But if you're self-coached or you're just kind of figuring things out in the sport and you have a training plan, the biggest advice I can give you, first and foremost, be flexible and be forgiving with yourself, and just listen to yourself and listen to your body. And I think you've always done a good job of this. We always talk about going by feel and just listening to your body and taking advantage of scenarios. Is that like if you're short on time and you have like, because some athletes have the opportunity to work out 16 hours a week. Some only have 8, and so you have to prioritize. And when you've got athletes who are single with absolutely 0 responsibilities outside of just making sure that, they breathe and go to work every day and they water their plant. Then you have other athletes who own their own business, work crazy hours, travel, married with kids. Like, we're talking 2 totally different animals here.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had this conversation with a gentleman this last week, and I said, listen, if you're short on time, and sometimes these athletes are also short on energy.
For sure,
like
dude.
we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, is like while sometimes you don't want to give in and just quit and hop off the trainer because you can't hit your intervals, you're going to finish out zone 1, zone 2. I told this guy, I said, listen, like if you get on the bike on a Tuesday and you've got like a crazy week or even just a normal week, and you're supposed to have like an easy endurance ride, but you just feel like freaking Spartacus on a bike, then do the intervals I have scheduled for you on Thursday. Because because with your schedule, I'd rather you do good and feel good and nail it than us do the endurance ride today. You run and swim on Wednesday or whatever, and then wake up Thursday and you had a late night of work, and then all of a sudden you feel like crap. And now you're basically gonna end up with 2 endurance rides. You see what I'm saying? Like, take advantage of what you got. You've always been good at this because when you're not like full on in racing, it's just listening to your body, and when it feels good, just rip it. And when it doesn't, don't. And while you need kind of a governor and like somebody to kind of look in and make sure, you've always, even if you're not on like a strict plan with me, you're always, but hey, is this a good idea? Is this not a good idea? Is this a bad idea? And so you just got to be, and that's also part of being flexible. It's like, hey, I don't want to miss an opportunity to let it rip. And while like I don't recommend that all the time, you have to be a very responsible athlete, I think, because you don't want to do it every single time, especially with running. But it is flexible and forgiving. Be those two things.
Mm-hmm. And back to your IKEA example, this weekend when I was sort of chasing you guys around on Saturday, I wound up riding next to a woman who was training for Augusta, and we were about 20 miles out maybe, and we rode up a long hill together, and I was like, what are you training for? She said, I'm training for Augusta next weekend. And I said, how far are you riding today? She said 50 miles, and I was like, okay. And I said, what are you up to? She goes, and tomorrow I'm doing a 14-mile run. And I said, really? It's like you can 1 week out from your half, and you're doing
7 days out, you're gonna run over it. Yeah,
you're gonna run over the distance. And I said, where'd you get that? She said, well, my sister and I just picked a training plan off the internet. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, you know what? I don't do that. I mean, I'm just not, I don't proclaim to be an expert or anything like that. I don't like to always but that just seems like, yeah, you can get into, that's the thing with some training plans is I don't know, they're not paying attention to anything. They're just a static sheet that was put together one time, and usually without a lot of thought probably, and like that's a great example of somebody hitting send before they really double check something maybe, and all of a sudden that poor girl is like throwing herself in a bad situation a week away from her race just because of a potentially I would assume that has to be an error, right? I mean, I don't know who would
hey
suggest.
Man, I've been in this business long enough, I'm in the sport long enough to know that it's probably, while it may be, I don't know, dude. People do some crazy things, but that's
Oh, that's just it. Build your confidence 7 days out with running. See,
yeah,
prove that you can run.
with 14 miles, which is probably going to end up being like a 2:15 run. For a lot of athletes.
Yeah.
So it's like an hour, 250-minute run, 7 days out. Okay, sure.
I told her that was about my longest run for any Ironman.
I'm sure that made her feel awesome. Way to kill her.
She actually did say, maybe I'll just run 5 tomorrow. I said, that's probably better.
I love it. See, that's perfect. 40, 50 minutes, week out. That's what I do. Yeah, but it's just a lot of information, but to be flexible, and it's really nice to have people you trust. Like there was an athlete in our closed group who posted something, like, hey, I'm getting into triathlons. What are some of the biggest things that you need? My money. I don't think she said money was tight, but it was like, it was prioritize what's most important and what's not. And I was riding with Strasser, and he was talking about that post, and he was like, what people failed to mention was that, and I totally agree with him, is that, what you need the most is a good group of people that can, and that also includes like a good physio and a good, person who has a good bike fit, like, somebody to see when you got niggles and pains, because like what you should be investing the most in is what's going to yield my biggest long-term investment and what's going to keep me And I'm not talking about dollar signs. I'm talking about what's going to allow me to do this sport long enough to where I can be able to succeed the most. Because guess what? You're not gonna hit all your goals year one. You're just not. I mean, you might not your goals, but you're probably not. You're not going to reach your full potential year one. That's how I should say it. Because a lot of people do hit their goals year one. But in terms of like reaching the peak of your athletic ability, it ain't gonna happen year one. It's gonna happen 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road. As you compound miles and miles and experience and seasons together. But it's so true. Is like you need people who can help put you back together. If something happens, keep you and just keep you moving. And we talk about this at nauseum too sometimes. It's like the greatest indicator of success is training availability. Are you available to train?
Mm.
And that goes through that's physically, emotionally, and mentally. So you need someone or somebody or a group to help you along and make sure you're physically doing the right things. And a lot of times, honestly, not doing too much physically. And then you need a group that supports us or a coach or a friend or a mentor that can help keep you dedicated and motivated and committed when you're mentally, emotionally down or you're not feeling it. That can pick you up and take you with them. And so I think that like it's just there. People are always well. People aren't always the answer because sometimes people are very much the wrong answer. But if you can find a good group of athletes or just people that can keep you moving in the right direction, that are positive, that are uplifting, that have good information, that aren't going to steer you down the wrong road, um, that's also what you need. And so you have to look for those people. That's what's going to keep you around for a long time, because if you really want to achieve the best you can, to the best of your ability, you got to be around a long time. It's not, you might see good results from athletes who have been doing it for a few months or a year, but it's not going to be their best probably.
Mm-hmm.
As they go years and years and years. So like, just definitely set yourself up for success in that way. So
Yeah.
it's good to have people.
Yeah. Well, I agree, and I started training for my first Ironman around age 50, and I'm, 5 or 6 years in now, and I can honestly say that, this podcast, being around you, being around the athletes, and over the last 2 years, and just figuring more and more stuff out, little things, understanding what I'm doing, that I'm probably in the best shape I've been in for all of these races, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and when I say that, I don't mean, just necessarily shape, but just like recovery ability and, just state of mind maybe, consistency with that, and, just in general. So that's long term, that's 5 or 6 years in, so it's like, a lot of people get into the sport with the idea of trying to do an Ironman and then just wanting to do it and quitting, one and done. And I guess I want to be sort of an example of how you can do this and sustain it and actually get stronger and healthier and whatever over the long haul, even though you're doing, what seems to a lot of people is crazy activity.
Yep.
And, and a lot of that has to do with that flexibility and forgiveness. And, it doesn't always mean 17 to 20 hours of training all the time. And, there's ways to sustain and improve, by being smart and being effective and knowing what you're doing and understanding that process of your body. And I want to talk a little bit about my first power meter experience, because that's turned into sort of me being forgiving and flexible too, in a way, because that I did my first FTP test, I think it was Wednesday, and it kind of wrecked me. And then Thursday I went out and rode with it just for an hour to kind of at the number, quote unquote, that it gave me to, what I thought might be my race effort.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually felt really good. I sustained it for like an hour and just wanted to see what it was like on a flat ground out there. And it felt really good, and I started calling it cheating a little bit. I was like, man, this is kind of like cheating, you know? It's like, you know, it's like, and then when I got out to ride with it on Natchez Trace, it completely overwhelmed me. And my first reaction was to, you know, just turn it off and never use it again, because I felt like I was married to this device,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really scrambling my brain, and it was sort of taking away all the, you know, the fluidity of riding, and I kind of lumped that into why I was probably even feeling worse, and it was just a stressful thing. About halfway through that ride, I actually took it off and put it in my pocket. I left it on, but I just didn't want to look at it anymore, because it was new, I guess, and it was sort of like scrambling my thought process, and it was just,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? I wasn't out there riding. Like we talk about this, is like, you know, sometimes when you go out and just look around, and you just feel, you end up having some of your better rides because you're just in the moment and fluid and riding like that. And I was really disappointed with the experience of my first real power meter ride, and I kind of decided that at that point that I wasn't interested almost. And then when I came home and thought about it, I was like, you know what, I could still use this. I could see how it could be effective on the trainer, and maybe doing some training rides leading up to the race, but I don't necessarily know if I'm going to use it in the race, and probably leaning against it right now. But what I did learn was Sunday I went out without it, and I remembered a lot of things that went through my mind, and like the feeling. That's kind of really what I was most interested in all along, was how am I riding normally, and what should I be doing? You know, like, and the big one I learned, the big lesson was on the hills. And you and I were talking about it actually, and I was kind of riding up a few hills with you, and we were talking about how you ride up hills. And I asked you if we were kind of going up this one hill, we're just kind of spinning up it real easy. And I said, is this how you would ride this hill in a race? And you're like, yep. And I, I started, you know, I kind of talked myself into believing well, I guess it was the right thing, and we just kind of rode up it easy. And I know that's probably where I get in a lot of trouble on races, is probably because I like hills and I like going up them hard, and I probably go up them too hard, you know what I mean? So
Yep.
I kept that in mind on Sunday without it, and I was spinning up, and it just made the ride much, much more enjoyable. And then the other thing I learned was that it's very hard to hit your number. I mean, and I kind of knew this. I mean, it's pretty logical. Like if you're going down hills, it's hard to get the power way up there, but that's okay, right? I mean,
Yep.
like if you're not hitting that number, but at least you're feeling you're something. You know what I mean? Like I'm not lollygagging on the hill. I'm riding it. You know.
Yep.
And those are the two lessons that I took away, and that made Sunday's ride just much more enjoyable. So I actually wasn't riding with it, but I was kind of riding with it, you know, at least in my head. And I just felt good about it. And so I'm going to keep using it. I'm going to do some trainer rides with it as we get ready, you know, closer. We're 27 days out from Louisville, by the way.
Oof, it's less than a big month coming up.
I know it.
You know, and one of those things that I do want to mention this for so many people that use power meters, and I've had a lot of questions about this, quite a few questions and emails about this lately from people I don't coach, but and athletes that I've started to work with, is that, you know, a lot of programs, even a lot of coaches, they'll give you like an exact number to hit. Like, I want you to hold, you know, 230 watts exactly for 20 minutes. And, you know, like, and there are a lot of apps that do, like Trainer Road and does that, and you know, Zwift or whatever. Like, I think they have like training now too. But, and I don't think that's bad, but I think that, you know, in terms of, like, we're talking power just for a quick second, I do think here in the next few weeks, like maybe after Louisville, I'll do another power meter segment on all things 2.0 power meter. But is that, and I feel the same way about giving an athlete, like, here, do 230 for 20 minutes. The kind of the same way I do about, hey, go run at 8:20 exactly for 1 hour.
Mm.
is that you take a little bit of, because I don't, I feel like it's kind of a dictatorship too. You're like programming an athlete. You tell them exactly what to do. If they can't hit that number, then they're basically failing the workout. I don't do that for one main reason, as I like to give athletes a little bit of leeway and a little bit of play, because I think it helps with decision making come race day, and helps them learn about themselves and make good decisions. But like if we're talking like zone three, most athletes, depending on kind of what protocol you go by on setting up your zones, like most zone threes like have a watt differential that's like almost 30 watts wide.
Mm.
And so what I like to do is I prefer to tell an athlete, zone 3 watts for 20 minutes. Because what that does is that gives them this 30-watt range basically to to work, to work in. And they can, if they're having an outstanding day, then let's go, like, let's say 250 is your ceiling, then go after 250. Even like 251, 252 is cool with me. Or if they're feeling crappy, maybe start out on the low end at like 220.
Mm-hmm.
But then maybe find out by interval 2 that they're warming up some. All right, well, let's start pushing 230, 240, 250. But it lets them still hit their quote unquote session without hitting an exact number. And so it gives them play. Because same thing as you get up to like, zone 4, zone 5, like adaptation still occurs even if you can't beat last week's average. Your body still, adapts and takes care of business. And so I just think that allowing an athlete to hit numbers, and it also can show you as a coach, like zone 4 is this, and they're hitting like the ceiling of zone 4 the whole time. It's definitely time to change things up, instead of like, here, do this number, this exact number, this exact amount of time. Again, it gives you time to learn if you're having a good day or a great day, but also allows you to kind of not write off a session based on the first interval. Because if I give you 250 watts for 20 minutes in the first interval, you just don't get warmed up and you can't hit it, and you hit like 230, you're like, there goes the day.
Mm-hmm.
So the next session, you're probably just going to scrap it. Versus start in zone 3 and like by the next, because I've had this multiple times. I've started out feeling like junk, and then like by interval 3 or 4, I feel like $1,000,000.
Right.
And so I can push the needle up. So you're still completing and succeeding and hitting a session. You're just not hitting an exact number. And I think that's another thing that gives people, that I think allows athletes to grow in their decision-making process and focus, is to do those kind of things and have that kind of, again, that flexibility to go high or go low, and then that forgiveness when they also can go low by choice because they're not feeling it, and still be okay with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I was going to ask you, is like, does is power, you know what I mean, like coming out of the gate, I would think like for me, I could see how my power numbers would go up over the course. Like, is that just natural how you kind of warm into that sort of power number too, into the race? Like, maybe not towards the end of 6 hours or whatever, but I could see how it would be easier for me to push, 180 watts or whatever at the 3.5 hour form mark than it would be the first 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever. So, and that's the second part of that question is, we talk about, it's a weird thing, like waking up your legs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes when we go out and everybody's starting, and I'm feeling like crap, and then at some point I just sort of force feed my legs to get going, and then I start feeling good. But that almost feels like a risky move in a race potentially, to really kind of go out of your comfort zone too early.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a patient thing, and even with regard to the numbers sometimes.
Oh, it's the numbers that matter. Like I was having this discussion again on the ride this weekend with Wes, and I was like, yeah, just like, do you understand that, like, if you don't even hit the lap button ever on a ride, even if you have intervals, and obviously if you're doing intervals, it makes it easier to hit the lap button, because it helps you keep track of time. But from my aspect, if you just like don't ever hit the lap button, that doesn't matter to me, because all I have to do is go to my screen and I can click the analyze button, and I can see the graph. and I can just use my little cursor on the mouse and click when the interval started because I can see it, and drag it over to when it stops, and I can see the exact same thing. So I don't. That's why I don't need the lap button. But for the same thing, like you said, on some of these like really really long rides, for certain aspects of it, I don't even look at what you're doing because, especially like during the warm up, because that's just to me that's like the pregame. That's the prelude to the work. And so I don't really need to know what it says. I don't take that into account because when you're under such fatigue and you're under such training stress, especially in these like last weeks before big races, like it just takes a while for your legs to even figure out what they want to do for the day. But once they get the blood going and once your muscles get popping, things change. So I don't even look at that. I will like click. So if like your warm up is like an hour and then you have like main sets that last like 2.5 hours or 3 hours on these long rides, I don't even look at the first hour. I just take my cursor and start it at the hour mark and then drag it over to like the 4 hour mark or end it with the ride. And then I see what your total average or normalized power was for that part of the ride. Because that tells me more information than what your first 30 minutes of warm-up time was before you got to the work that you could actually produce. Like I want to know what you can produce and see what you can produce, not what it took you to get there. Warm up wise. So yeah, there's a lot of things to take into account, and again, that's why we'll hit up after Chattanooga and Louisville and a couple of races. Maybe I'll dive into another. Yeah, Maddie says, "Give it to us now." I'll dip into another power meter thing.
Yeah, Maddie's fired up.
Yeah,
I don't know who's here.
Dear Lord.
Maybe got another delivery. Crushing iron gear.
Oh, did you? Yeah, flying off the shelves.
Yeah. So enough about the power meters. How you feeling about spectator sports these days?
Spectator sports?
Yeah.
I am stoked for both Chattanooga and Louisville.
Yeah.
Hanging out with the athletes, seeing people, talking to people, shaking hands, kissing babies. Probably not kissing babies, but shaking hands, giving hugs, hanging out. I do have to say, speaking of spectator sports, my Miami Dolphins are 2-0 and the current leaders of the AFC East.
Man, my eyes just glazed over there. What are you talking about, NFL?
Mm-hmm. It's been a long time struggle for us Dolphins fans.
Yeah, don't get your hopes up too high, bro.
Believe me, they're not.
It's like any college football fan. Don't even get your hopes up because Alabama's just going to walk through this year again.
They say that every year.
Well, this is like a silly season right now.
We'll see. None of it matters right now is the swim portion of the college football season.
Yeah.
All that matters is the last 2 or 3 weeks anyway, once they get into conference play.
This is true. True.
No, good things, and happy to see the crew, and a lot of people are ending their year, so good luck to everybody as well. It's ending their year, and some people are just moving right along into the 2019 year, and you're always prepping. And so I know we mentioned the closed group, but I've got a really solid what I call Q4 and Q1 plan for athletes looking for a training plan to kind of like have some guidance and structure and purpose to their quote unquote off season / the fall and winter months, because season is not taking things off. It just means take a short break and then start to restructure. It's not about becoming lazy and losing all the fitness you just worked so hard to build and then trying to figure out why it all went away. And like listen, it takes after 3 weeks the body starts to be like, bye, see you later.
Mm-hmm.
And you begin to see signs of what they call like detraining. And so thinking about taking 2 months off, that's a while.
A lot of us do it.
Yeah, so a lot of us do. So
but it's painful.
It is painful. The restart's always painful.
January 1, let's get back into it. Man,
yeah,
I can't swim like 300 yards.
Exactly. Let's be honest. Like, especially you need to, in my opinion, and I believe this wholeheartedly, you need to be in a groove before the cold really sets in. Because once the cold really sets in, if you haven't gotten into consistent groove again and back to like your regularly scheduled training, then, man, it's dark all the time. It's cold. It's hard to get out of the house. You need something. because then you got Thanksgiving and the holidays, and you got holiday parties, and you're eating like crap, and you're snorting sugar cookies and eating boxes of, Russell Stover's chocolate for Valentine's. And next thing you know, it's March, and then, oh crap, you're 2.5 months out from your first race of the year. And that tri
Been
outfit's
there.
probably going to be a little snug. Yeah, been there too. So yeah, if if you have any general questions about what we got going on with training camps in 2019, swim analysis, gear, the blog, podcast, all the things, and then also coaching and training package options, you can go to crushingiron.com. If you have specific questions about the fall and winter training program I've created, you can just email me directly at c26coach@gmail.com, and then feel free to hit us up and look out for us in Chattanooga and in Louisville in the next 4 weeks. We'll be there with bells on, ready to, like you said, I'll shake hands, Mike will do the selfies, and that should cover it.
Yeah, I'm pumped, man. I mean, going to Wisconsin got me pumped up. Chattanooga's going to get me another level. I mean, it's good to actually, I always tell people if they're thinking about doing an Ironman, they should go watch one. And
Yeah.
it will really inspire you, and you'll be able to see, everyday people out there doing something amazing. And I'm always blown away by the, body types and the variations of people that pull this thing off. And I almost daily someone will say, I could never do that. Look at me. And I'm like, go watch one. You'll see.
Yep. Go watch one.
You will be shocked by some of the people that can pull this together. And I just love it. I love being around the vibe. That's what I was saying. It's like I'm more excited about that than anything to do with like watching college football right now or anything. It's really weird. So I'm cool with that.
I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm cool that Chattanooga's putting on a race next weekend. I'm really happy.
I'm really happy. Good, congratulations.
Thank you, Chattanooga.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, Louisville.
Yeah, and we'll be back with you Thursday for a very special Crushing Iron podcast, episode 200.
The greatest hits.
Maybe that will be what we'll do. Look back over the past 2 years of our greatest hits, greatest misfires.
It would be like 8 minutes long.
Yeah, basically. Because in order to do that, I'm gonna have to stomach going back and listening to like our first 20.
Yeah, I'm still
can't.
threatening to repost number one. Our first podcast.
Listen, I have a hard time enough like when somebody forces me to like listen to my voice where I left a voicemail, much less listen to myself in a podcast.
Well, we'll be getting a lot of selfies for you.
That's right. Selfies and Snapchats and Marco Polos and vlogs and all that Snapgrams and sharing my stories and yeah, that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, our gram was on point at Wisconsin, but it's fallen off a little bit.
That's all right. We'll get back at it.
Hey, follow us on Instagram, C26_triathlon, and we are going to be on the money in Chattanooga with Instagram posts.
Yep. And then we'll go dark for 2 weeks and be back at it at Louisville.
Yeah. You never know. Well, you might inspire us to really get into Instagram.
Yeah, it's probably not going to happen. But,
probably not.
No. Every time, have you gotten emails for us like, hey, I'm a social media expert and this. I'm like, yeah, we understand our social media is weak. We got it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're okay with that.
Yeah, we're the unsocial media guys.
Yeah.
In some regard.
Because I feel like, yeah. I mean, if I feel like if I ever get to the point to where I'm updating our social media every single day or multiple times a day on every platform, I might as well just wear board shorts, a tank top, get one of those really weird, funky-looking flat bill hats, and wear some Ray-Bans.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can be full-on triathlon mode. I'm like, no, I'm a hard pass on all four of those things.
You think?
Yes. That's funny. I love following people sometimes, and I see like they have never done a triathlon. They get to like their third or fourth one, and now they look totally different. They
Oh,
were wearing like, regular clothes, the average day Joe, and then next time you see them, they got this like ugly ass flat bill hat that sits like 7 inches above their forehead. Big Roca sunglasses, a tank top. Lula says like Kona coffee, and some like Lulu shorts. I'm like, get out of here.
maybe I'll
Get out of
repost
here.
that picture. I wore a flat bill
God,
hat
it
once.
annoys me nauseum. You do. You did it one time. I was like,
Tyr, was it TYR? How do you say it?
yes, it was
I
like,
was in New Orleans and I bought a flat
I
bill.
remember, dude. I remember this like it was yesterday. It was still on my like, you know, it,
Guess what? I posted a
comment
bunch
on
of pictures with that. That was my worst race ever, easily. It serves me right for trying to be tri-boy.
exactly. Triathlon gods are like, hey, I'm gonna slam your brakes together and you're gonna rub the whole way, and then I'm gonna try and blow you off the bike. Here, that's what I think about your flat bill hat.
Oh man, I thought I was
Yeah, you
that
did.
weekend.
Yeah, well, 6.5 hours later.
6.5 hours later, like the most unbelievable sunburn
That's right.
that is now our podcast
It is
cover.
now our podcast logo, so we got something good out of it.
Yeah, and I stepped back and I learned from that bad workout day.
and burn that tier hat.
I learned to carry wire cutters with me so I can snip the cable of my brake cord.
Exactly.
So now what?
Now what?
I got my off day, or my recovery day is like 45-minute run and 3,500 in the pool. I just was laughing about that earlier. It's kind of like
Back to work.
5 years ago to think about that as a recovery day is just laughable.
Mm-hmm.
Look how far we've come.
Yep, we come far.
We've come far.
Yep, and we'll keep going.
Yeah. All right, I guess that wraps up episode number 199 of the podcast.
It is. And
I am
we'll see you Thursday, episode 200.
200. It's going to be something special, or it's going to be exactly the same.
Exactly.
All right, man. Well, have a great day, and I'll catch up with you soon.
All right, dude. See you, man.
See ya.